Good morning and welcome to Fort Walton Beach Church of Christ. And, we're fortunate this morning that while we're having a little bit of inclement weather, the worst of the nasty storm, it looks like it's well to the west of us. Obviously keep our brothers, our family, our friends, acquaintances, and even the strangers that are in the path of the storm in our prayer. It's going to be an interesting class this morning. I went out to the car like 3 times this morning to get things. First it was my Bible, and then it was, what am I out here for? And then it was my glasses, and I still don't have my glasses because they're on the table at the house. So, oh yeah, there we go. Excuse me for those online. For those online, I apologize. You did not hear any of this, but anyway, I left my glasses, so I'm going to be standing back here to try to read what's on my paper here. So it'll be fun, it'll be interesting, but welcome to the Sunday morning Bible class. We have been studying our course called Living a Life That Matters, and today we're going to look at living a life that matters through the story, the events of Zacchaeus. And we all know the story of Zacchaeus. We all probably even remember a song that we might have sung, either to our children or as children ourselves, about Zacchaeus. And in many cases, that may be all you know. So hopefully we're going to expand that just a little bit as we talk about Zacchaeus. Before we do that, one of the things that I like to do is a review to kind of keep us aware of the things that we've discussed over the last 2 quarters. Living a life that matters. We began our topic of living a life that matters looking at Psalms and Proverbs as the basis for that. And so as we looked at Psalms and Proverbs, we said living a life that matters, fears God, and keeps His commandments. And then we looked at living a life that matters, chooses courage in the face of fear. It doesn't mean that you're not fearful. It means that you walk through and work through your fears courageously, with purpose in mind. Living a life that matters lives reverently, respecting God and respecting others. Living a life that matters finds joy in the gifts of God. God's given us many gifts that we have. Matter of fact, everything that we know, everything that we see, everything that we experience, even things that we do not know and do not see and do not experience, come from God. And so there are many opportunities to enjoy the gifts of God. Living a life that matters, trust God. Trust God when things are difficult. Trust God when things are going just fine. Living a life that matters is humble. Living a life that matters is humble. Living a life that matters looks for wisdom in the right places. It looks for wisdom, seeks wisdom from God. Living a life that matters is expeditious and unashamed. That means we have a mission, we have a purpose, we're ready to fulfill that mission, we're ready to fulfill that purpose, and we do so unashamed. We do so with joy and excitement. Living a life that matters is generous and sacrificial. The things that we recognize as people that are of God, we recognize the things that we have are not our things to have, but they belong to God. And that we are just but stewards of the things that we have, and therefore they are things that we should be using for the glory of God. And then living a life that matters is gracious. And we talked a little bit about the definition of graciousness. Okay. So after we looked through Psalms and we looked through Proverbs, we also began looking at living a life that matters through Bible characters. And that's the section that we're on now, is living a life that matters through Bible characters. And so we began with Job, and of course everybody knows that Job was patient. And of course if you read Job, you begin to think, well, he had a mouth on him. He sounded impatient. A lot of the things that we talk about patience, and he says, he didn't sound like a patient individual at all, but he was, because he suffered, but he kept his focus. He was long-suffering, that definition of patience. He was ready to wait on the Lord. and ready to wait on the Lord's time. Living the life that matters lives faithfully. Of course, the story of Hannah, and if you recall the story of Hannah, what was her condition? She was without child, she wanted a child, she desired a child very greatly. She was persecuted by others because she did not have a child, and she prayed fervently for a child. And she said, if I am given a child, I will dedicate this child to the Lord. And she fulfilled faithfully her vow, despite how difficult that must have been for her. Living the life that matters is merciful. Joseph was an individual who had been betrayed multiple times by his brothers, and yet when he was in a position of power, when he was in a position of authority, he chose to be merciful to them. And then, in fact, when his father died and his brothers began to worry and be concerned that now that their dad is gone, there's nothing to keep Joseph from retributing. That's not really a word, but creating havoc with us. We'll go back to him and we'll beg him that, hey, our father said before he died, this is what you need to do. And Joseph wept. And we talked about the fact that the unmerciful often do not understand mercy that's given to them. Living a life that matters lives quietly, and we talked about David, and of course David, we look at David's life and we go, quiet? This is a guy who conducted war. He was chased by Saul. He was always in and about doing things. But yet, when you look at his stories, I mean his Psalms, you realize that he took moments to reflect, to take some quiet time, and seek and serve God. Living a life that matters lives completely, and we talked about Asa. And Asa is a Bible character that you may or may not remember. Generally speaking, he's kind of lost in amongst the kings of Judah. Asa did exactly what was right in the eyes of God. He was called a man who lives right in the eyes of God. And yet at the end of his life, he made some very, very serious mistakes. And so we looked at him as an example of the opposite of what we should do, kind of like the Bernstein Bears and the riding by the bicycle. It's like, it's not what I do, it's what I say. This is what you need to do. Don't do it. Don't follow my example, Asa's saying. Follow God's example. And so we looked at a life that matters as a life that lives completely, from beginning to end, with purpose in mind. And speaking of purpose in mind, we looked at the woman at the well. The woman at the well was encountered Jesus. She had very many difficulties in her life. Upon Jesus encountering her, though, she began living a life of mission to tell others about Jesus. And then unwaveringly, yes, without wavering. And we looked at Josiah and the fact that from a young child on through his life, he remained steadfast in his approach. And so today we're going to talk about Zacchaeus. Okay, so I have some random characters up on the screen. Aside from the fact that they're all male and they're all light complected, what do these folks have in common? You know? Most people know who they are, okay? They're famous, quote unquote famous people. There may be one or two you don't know who they are. Anything else? So these 7 people have had the privilege of being within eyesight of me. Okay? So that's not really all that important, right? But I don't know why you didn't guess that. These 7 people have been in the privilege of being within eyesight of me. I'll tell you the story of each one of them, and you'll see where we're going with this in just a minute. So we'll start with Jimmy Dean, the sausage maker, and also the famous country music singer and actor to some degree. I saw him in an airport. Actually, I saw the big hat that he's wearing at the airport, and he stands about 6'6" or 7", did stand about 6'6" or 7". And so I'm going, who is that big tall guy? And I managed to get in a position, oh, I know who that is, Jimmy Dean. So airport distance, right? So he didn't see me, sorry. Ted Kennedy, similar situation. I was in Washington, D.C., and I'm walking along near back when you could get closer to the Capitol, and he's up on the outside area where you can stand up at the Capitol, and he was doing an interview with somebody, and I walked within reasonable distance that I could see him. He was focused on the interview, not focused on me at all. George Bush. There was some event here in Fort Walton Beach, and no, we were actually on the base, and I was there, and this big crowd of people, and there's this little guy about that far away. That was George Bush, so that's as close as Tammy got closer, but that's as close as I got. Ralph, let's see. Ralph Nader. Anybody know who Ralph Nader is? The older folks know who Ralph Nader is. The younger folks may not know who he is. But in any case, I was at an event, a work-sponsored event, where they had a whole bunch of speakers come in, and he was like from me to you, like distance to Ralph Nader. I could have asked him a question, but I really didn't. Let's see, Bill Gates. I was walking along the sidewalk in Washington, D.C., and this tall guy comes walking past me, and he had like almost three people like trying to get his attention. And here I go walking around again, trying to get his attention, and like for the sound bite that they could talk to him, all dressed really nice. He was just like in a shirt and kind of like what he's looking like right there. And I go, oh, that was Bill Gates. Huh. He didn't take any notice of me either. See, who have I missed? Oh, Sam Donaldson. Sam Donaldson was a funny one. I was back behind the White House, and I'm just I'm a tourist, right? I'm walking around going to see what's going on, and of course the newscasts are there, right? And here comes Sam Donaldson, and he is his mind is on something, and he's like walking like really fast. And I'd see him every evening on the news. And I did like this, and then I realized, you don't know who I am. I put my hand down. And I got, who's the last one? Daniel Radcliffe. Daniel Radcliffe, if you don't know, he was the character that played Harry Potter as the main character of Harry Potter. And in his case, I was in a restaurant in London, and I looked around and I went, that's the guy. I couldn't remember his name. I was like, that's the guy that plays Harry Potter. I looked at Tammy and go, what's it? Daniel Radcliffe. Oh, Daniel Radcliffe, the guy that plays Harry Potter. And she goes, no, you didn't see him. I said, yeah, I did. And I turned around again. He's coming back, and he's putting his jacket on. He's getting ready to go outside, and he sees me. Okay, he sees me. And I kind of did like this, nodded my head, and he smiled and nodded my head like, thank you for not making a scene, right? That's my experience with famous people. Now, I've been to basketball games, I've been to football games, things like that where, there's a coach out there and everybody knows who the coach is and that sort of thing. But what I'm talking about is unexpected, unpaid for encounters, right? Here I am. So why am I bringing this up? You may wonder, inquiring minds may wonder why I'm bringing this up. Well, that's exactly the situation that Zacchaeus was in. You probably experienced something similar. You've run into somebody famous somehow, and maybe you tried to get a view of them. Maybe you tried to get within their range so that you could see them, watch them walk by, or hear them speak, right? Or what are they going to do? Well, that's exactly the situation that Zacchaeus was in. Someone famous was coming to Jericho, and he wanted to see him. Okay, that's really it, right? And in your experiences, you may have been the one that said, "Here, can you sign an autograph?" Or maybe you were the one more like me that's like, "I'm not going to pester this poor character, right? I'm just going to go climb a tree and look and see if I can see him, right?" Well, let's talk about Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is a very short reading. It's like 10 verses. So I'm going to read through those. And we're going to talk a little bit about Zacchaeus. It is found in Luke chapter 19, beginning in verse 1. And Jesus, and he, it just says he, I put in parentheses Jesus so you know who we're talking about. He entered Jericho and was passing through. Jesus wasn't staying there. He was just probably headed to the Jordan River at the time, right? He's going through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. Make sure I don't miss anything here. Oh yeah, chief tax collector. So I did a little research to find out what a chief tax collector is and does, right? So first of all, he's the boss, right? He's the boss. Turns out that in Roman times, if you wanted to be the chief tax collector, you bid for the job. And so if you bid for the job, you said, look, I want to be the tax collector for Jericho. And if I'm going to be the tax collector for Jericho, then I think we can collect $10 million from Jericho in taxes. And so I bid that I will produce $10 million in revenue for the Roman Empire. Now, if perchance you are able to exact $20 million in revenue, you are only obligated to give home $10 million. You see a little bit of a moral hazard here, a little bit of dilemma, okay? And so that's what a chief tax collector did. Now he assigned people responsibilities for collecting the tax and says, hey, you're responsible for get this much, this much, this much, this much, and then you get some percentage off of that, and that's how you get paid. Okay, so first of all, he was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Now, he could have been rich by many means. He could have been rich because he inherited money. He could have been rich because he was really good at estimating and convincing other people that they couldn't get that much taxes, so he became chief, right? He could have been rich because he cheated people. All we know is that he was a tax collector and he was rich, okay? Starting in verse 3, and he was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not because he was small in stature. Okay, so there's a lot of people around. He's looking to see Jesus, and all he sees is the backs of shoulders and maybe heads, right? He knows he's there, but he can't see him. So he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass by that way. Now, put a picture of a sycamore tree up there. This is a sycamore fig, not a sycamore London plane tree that we see in the United States. Sycamore fig. And you see, at least in this example, there's a pretty strange root system. So it's possible that when he says he climbed up into the tree, he may have done like these people here did, and just climbed up on the roots high enough so that he could get over their heads. And then again, he might have been out on a branch, right, and kind of climbed down on the edge and looked over. We really don't know. We just know he climbed up in a tree, right? Excuse me. Verse 5, and when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, kind of like the song, right? Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, for I must stay at your house today. Now, Daniel Radcliffe, while he ate with me, you were at the same restaurant, right? Yeah. While he ate with me, did not say, Doug, I'd like to go eat with you at your house. Of course, if he said that, I'd say, it's a long ways away. But Jesus said, Zacchaeus got more than he expected, right? His hope was to see Jesus. His greatest hope would be to see Jesus, hear Jesus speak or perform some miracle. But instead, Zacchaeus, I got to come to your house today. Whoa. Okay? So he hurried, came down, and received him joyfully. So that was Zacchaeus' response. I gotta come see you. I'm coming down now. I'm coming there. Yes, I'm excited, right? You can see him sort of jumping for joy, maybe. We don't know how old he was. And Jesus, first thing I want to point out is that Jesus called him by name. He didn't say, hey, you up in the tree, right? He said, Zacchaeus. How does he know who Zacchaeus is? Right? Because he's Jesus, yes. Zacchaeus was excited, and Zacchaeus was excited. Two key things out of that. Jesus called him by name. Zacchaeus was excited. I tell you what, if Sam Donaldson had said, hey, Doug, how you doing? I see you in your living room every evening, I'd have been, right? I've been rethinking about what I was wearing in the living room, right? Luke chapter 19, verse 7, and when they saw it, they all grumbled. When they saw it, they all grumbled. He is gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. I want to stop right there. Who's they? Well, actually, we don't know. We don't know. So, in the context, it was the people that were following him, his disciples, but maybe not, because it's uncertain. He was also talking about the Pharisees and all the people in the crowd. So we don't know who they is. All we know is they grumbled. The people grumbled when they saw it. He has gone in to be the guest of a sinner. Zacchaeus was prejudged. Now, we talked about just a moment ago who Zacchaeus was, right? He was a tax collector, and he was rich, and we know how the system works. And so, therefore, Zacchaeus was guilty. Anybody do that today? If I had asked you before we started this class, was Zacchaeus a sinner? Now, obviously, we're all sinners, but was Zacchaeus a cheater of people? What would your response be? Yes, he's a tax collector. Zacchaeus is still judged guilty. We still do it today. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying he was prejudged, and he's still prejudged. I'm not a lawyer, but I think I'm going to show you that the Bible never says he was guilty. And we have it in our mind that he was, just like they did. Now, Zacchaeus responds to those judgments. Zacchaeus heard it. He was hurt by it. He responded to it. Zacchaeus stood and said, not to the people. Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, half my goods I give to the poor, and if, notice the words, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. Now, he's already going above the law. The law does not require this in the Old Testament. He's going above it by what he's saying, right? Voluntary restitution, I think, was 20%, not 4 times the amount. Right? So first of all, he makes a proclamation. Now, you and I know that this is impossible if he was guilty, if you think about it. If he's an honest man, he just made a vow he cannot possibly keep if he's been dishonest. Right? If I give half of my stuff away and I've been spending a whole bunch of time defrauding 10 or 15, 20, 100 people, and I start giving them 4 times the amount, I'm going to run out of cash real quick. Right? If my wealth has been based upon that. Now, it was a vow of poverty, so to speak, but he was promising
to give back to anyone that he defrauded fourfold. Zacchaeus doesn't deny being a sinner. Zacchaeus responds to the judgments. He doesn't say, I haven't defrauded anyone. Wait a minute. He says to the Lord, look, right now, this is what I promise. I'm going to give half of my goods to the poor. And if I defrauded anyone, I'll restore them fourfold. I think as a man who's confident that he did things the right way. While he might have made a mistake here and there, he's a man who believes he did the things the right way. He believes that he's been honest in his dealings. Zacchaeus seemingly declares innocence to the charges by his commitments. So, you've misjudged Zacchaeus all your lives, right? Because he's rich, because he's a tax collector, right? Obviously, because he works for the Romans.
What was the motivation here? Just the fact that Jesus is going to have dinner with me, I'm going to...
Well, yeah, good questions, and I don't know the answer. There are two more verses to this. There might have been a little guilt. There might have been the fact that he knew who Jesus was. There might have been some other conversations that are not recorded. All sorts of possibilities, right? Yeah, we don't know how long it went from the time that they began grumbling to the time that he made this comment. So, good question. What transpired to cause this reaction? We have what we have. We don't have any more. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. It's interesting, they say, and he said to him, and then the context of the words are, so that all you other folks that are listening, since he is the son of Abraham, for the Son came to seek and save the lost. He spoke directly to Zacchaeus, but he was talking to everybody around, right? Jesus acknowledged Zacchaeus. Jesus acknowledges Zacchaeus' equality. Jesus recognized that Zacchaeus was equal to every other of the they, right? Tax collector, rich, poor, whatever, equal before God. Jesus acknowledged, pointed out Zacchaeus' need for salvation. And Jesus acknowledged Zacchaeus' commitment to honest living. That is the message that we want to try to get out of Zacchaeus. Living a life that matters lives honestly. Living a life that matters lives honestly. Now, there's been dishonesty throughout the Bible. Do you know that? Lots of liars out there. Okay. Genesis chapter 4, someone said, am I my brother's keeper? Now, you say, well, wait a minute, how's that dishonest? He's just asking a question. What was he trying to do? What's that? Dodge the answer, right? He was trying to deflect. He was trying to deceive, right? He was trying to get out of a situation. Am I my brother's keeper? That was, of course, Cain, right? Cain and Abel. She is my sister, Genesis chapter 20. Who is that? In one case, it was Abraham, right? In Genesis chapter 20, it was Abraham. Another of his sons did that too. She is my sister. Now, you say, well, she was his sister, right? It was, yeah. I mean, he married his half-sister, so yeah, it was. But what was the situation? He was trying to deceive. He was trying to put off, we're not really certain what, right? But he was trying to get in good graces with the Pharaoh, right? And then Jacob said to his father in Genesis chapter 27, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you've told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your son may bless me. What's the story here? What's going on? Yeah, Jacob is stealing. Not only is he lying, he's stealing, right? He's being dishonest. Okay? And his mother was complicit in the whole thing, right? Yeah, exactly. So Jacob was dishonest. I was trying to get a little sound bite and get that, but that was the best sound bite I could get out of that section. So you're exactly right. Exodus chapter 20. I love this one. So I said to them, let any of you who have gold take it off, and they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. Now, if you're going to tell a whopper, that's not the way to do it, right? All right, dishonesty throughout the Bible. Jeremiah chapter 38. And Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, let no one know of these words, and you shall not die. If the officials that I have spoken with, that I have spoken with you and come to you and say to you, tell us what you said to the king and what the king said to you, hide nothing from us, and we will not put you to death, then you shall say to them, I made an humble plea to the king that he would not send me back into the house of Jonathan to die there. Then all the officials came to Jeremiah and asked him, and he answered them as the king had instructed him. So they stopped speaking with him, for the conversation had not been overheard, and Jeremiah remained in the court until the day Jerusalem was taken. You know, Jeremiah lied. He did. He was dishonest. The Bible doesn't hold back. It tells you when these things happen, right? But the Bible calls for honesty. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, for we aim at what is honorable, not in the Lord's sight, but also the sight of men. 2 Timothy chapter 2, 15. You say, wait a minute, what's this about honesty? Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who has no need to be ashamed. Right? Okay, it also talks about rightly handling of the word of truth, but then again, word of truth, right? Colossians chapter 3, verse 9, do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25, therefore, having put away falsehood, let each of you speak the truth with his neighbors, for we are all members of one another. James chapter 3, verse 17, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. All about honesty, truthfulness. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 10, for whoever desires to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Continue the call for honesty in Proverbs chapter 6. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush to evil, a false witness. There's 2 examples of lying there, right? Who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. My son, keep your father's command and do not forsake your mother's teaching. That's a whole lot of teaching right there in that verse. But we're going to focus on the lying tongue, keeping in mind that God calls for honesty. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 17, I know, my God, that you test the hearts and have pleasure in uprightness, in the uprightness of my heart. And I have freely offered all these things, and now I've seen your people who are present here offering freely and joyously to you. This is David, and when he talks about the uprightness of the heart, often some translations use the word honesty of heart, right? So what I have, what I am on the inside is what I present on the outside, honesty. Matthew chapter 5, Jesus said it this way, Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. And then, of course, our favorite, we had this little song when we were young, and we would say Revelation 21:8. You know, yeah, I won't sing the song. It's kind of rude. But anyway, and he said, and he who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new. Write this down, for the words are trustworthy and true." And he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give the spring of water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have his heritage, and this will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly and the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexual or immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death." Honesty, the Bible calls for honesty. Living a life that matters is honest. It's truthful. It holds truth as critical, important. So, challenges with honesty. We've got to go there, right? What are the challenges? What are the challenges with honesty? Anybody know? Thoughts? Repetition? Reputation. Reputation. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So your reputation precedes you, right? If you lie, if you are dishonest, over time you will lose a good reputation if you had it. Honesty is, let's just define it just a little bit. It's consistency with agreements. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it, right? It has no intent to deceive. That's the difficult one, right? No intent to deceive. It's an alignment of my heart and my words. I'm speaking from out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So what is on my heart? What am I trying to do? How am I relating to you as a person, as a human, right? Alignment of words and actions. So that is a definition, may not be the only definition of honesty, but it's consistency with agreements, no intent to deceive, alignment of heart and words, alignment of words and actions. So what is not honest? Now, let me restate that. Things that are confused with honesty. Not saying these are wrong, they're confused with honesty. Openness. Volunteering what you know, openness is volunteering what you know. Not being open is only dishonest if you've chosen it in order to deceive. For example, you ask me, "What did you do yesterday?" And I say, "Well, let's see. I got up and made a breakfast, and then I mowed a little bit of the grass, and let's see, I did a little bit of paperwork, studied this lesson a little bit, I sat down and watched a couple shows on television." And they said, "Did you change clothes? Did you get a shower?" "Yeah." "You didn't tell me." Well, okay, I can't tell everything. If I tell you everything, it's going to take me all day, right? So sometimes it's important, like, who called? "Oh, somebody I know. It's all good." "Who called?" "Oh, it was an old girlfriend." It might be important to be open there, right? If you're trying to deceive, it's one thing. If you're not, it's another, right? Completeness. Telling the whole story. And that's actually the one I was trying to get to, is completeness. And the last one is outspoken. "I'm just being honest." Yeah, but you're being hurtful, right? So sometimes we confuse openness, telling more than we need to talk about, completeness, not realizing what we need to say or what we don't need to say, not realizing what the question's getting at, maybe whatever it is, or outspokenness, saying things that are rude and inappropriate, as being honest, right? So let's don't get those two confused, or those things confused with honesty. Any thoughts or questions on that? Agreements, disagreements, you know, I didn't pull these fully out of Scripture, so I need to make sure that I'm not misaligned with what the principle of Christianity is teaching us. Thoughts?
So you're called upon to speak the truth when you know it's going to, that it won't be kind, that it will be rude, and so forth. So that's the challenge. Where do you go with that?
Right.
But if the truth is going to cause me to lose my soul, then I want you to be bold, honest, and rude.
Amen.
Okay. All right. Good. Wow. So there are some options. There are some options there, right? So Jesus was certainly bold, honest, and rude, right? But do we have the authority that Jesus has? So then we go to that stage, right? Do we have the position that Jesus had to be bold, honest, and rude, right? Good questions. Other thoughts on openness, completeness, or outspokenness?
Well, there are lies that protect yourself, which I think Scripture condemns entirely. But there are lies that protect others that sometimes I struggle with. You know?
Okay. So there are lies that protect yourself, which the Bible is pretty clear on honesty on. And then there are lies that protect others. You know, we as human beings, we're dishonest, right? We are dishonest at times, right? So, and Mike is saying sometimes he struggles with that last one because he wants to protect other people. And sometimes it's like, if I tell the truth, it's going to hurt somebody. And I want to avoid that.
Take examples from, the Gestapo, right? They come knocking on your door. We know you have some Jews hiding in there somewhere, and you go, I don't know what you're talking about, right? You're lying. You know exactly where they're at because you hid them. I mean, things aren't normally that drastic here today or amongst us, but those things do exist. They existed in the Bible. You've got the harlot that lied about where they went. They're hiding on her roof, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, see? And yet she was blessed because she lied to protect God's people. So what Mike says is absolutely correct. There's a struggle in, I think, hopefully in all of us, right? Because it seems, by example within the Bible, that there might be instances whereby attempting to do good for others, being a servant for others, might in fact necessitate that you lie. Presumably you're doing that to some sort of ungodly entity, whether it's the Gestapo or whoever, right? But still, does that excuse it? I don't know. It's a struggle.
Yeah. So good illustration, good point, and good question. I don't think we can know the answer. I think that's a relationship between us and God, and in each case, right? What is our relationship with God? What is our intent? What is our purpose? What is our mission, right? And so that really takes care of that outspoken aspect too. If my greater purpose is to help this person, protect that person, and I know that the only way to get through that thick skull of theirs is to be rude, then that's what I will have to do, right? Okay, good. Living a life that matters, Zacchaeus represented a commitment to honesty. And that's what a life that matters is a commitment to honesty. You're going to struggle. We all struggle. Because there are situations where you feel backed into a corner, right? You feel that you need to say something to protect somebody else, right? There's very good examples. But living in a life that matters is dedicated to living a life that's honest. Thank you for your time this morning.